In an unprecedented turn of events, Belarus, long considered one of the most tightly controlled states in Europe, now stands on the edge of political chaos. President Alexander Lukashenko, often referred to as Europe's last dictator, faces the greatest challenge to his rule since he seized power in 1994. For nearly 3 decades, he has ruled Belarus with an iron hand, suppressing dissent, silencing critics, and maintaining a network of loyal security forces that ensured his survival through every crisis. But now, in a dramatic twist, the very generals who once guarded his power are turning against him. Reports emerging from Minsk suggest that several high-ranking officers within the Belarusian military and security establishment have demanded Lukashenko's immediate resignation. The corridors of power in Belarus are no longer safe for the man who once ruled them unopposed. The crisis began quietly, with growing frustration among senior officers over Lukashenko's close alliance with Moscow and the involvement of Belarusian forces in Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. Many in the Belarusian army see this as a reckless gamble, one that has brought nothing but isolation, sanctions, and the loss of national sovereignty. Sources close to the Belarusian Ministry of Defense claim that several generals privately expressed anger over Russian troops using Belarusian territory to launch missile and drone attacks on Ukraine. These actions, they say, have turned Belarus into a co-aggressor in a war it never wanted. Over time, this silent resentment grew into open defiance. The tipping point reportedly came after a secret meeting in early October where Lukashenko allegedly ordered the deployment of additional Belarusian units to the Ukrainian border. Several top commanders, including those from the elite internal troops and the Western Operational Command, refused to comply. This defiance was unprecedented in Lukashenko's regime, where disobedience usually meant immediate dismissal or imprisonment. Instead of backing down, the generals presented an ultimatum: either Lukashenko steps down voluntarily or they would withdraw their support from the government altogether. Sources from within the opposition say this demand has thrown the entire security apparatus into confusion. Some units remain loyal to the president, while others appear hesitant to act against their fellow soldiers. Behind closed doors, Lukashenko is said to be furious and paranoid. Reports suggest he has increased his personal security detail and relocated temporarily to a secure military compound outside Minsk. According to some insiders, he no longer trusts even his closest advisors. A once fearsome dictator now finds himself surrounded not only politically but physically by those who once pledged their lives to defend him. Rumors swirl that Russian intelligence officers have been sent to Belarus to monitor the situation closely and to ensure that Lukashenko does not fall. The Kremlin views Belarus as a crucial buffer state, and Vladimir Putin cannot afford instability on his western flank, especially with his forces stretched thin in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Belarusian public watches these developments with a mix of fear and hope. For years, opposition movements have been brutally suppressed, especially after the mass protests that followed the disputed 2020 presidential election. Tens of thousands were arrested and many leaders were forced into exile. Yet despite this repression, the spirit of resistance never died. Underground movements, independent journalists, and exiled opposition leaders have continued to coordinate efforts to challenge Lukashenko's rule. With cracks appearing in the military hierarchy, these groups see a rare opportunity to strike. Exiled opposition leader Sviatlana Tsikhanouskaya, speaking from Lithuania, urged the generals to stand with the people, not with the dictator. Her message quickly spread across Belarusian social media, resonating deeply with both civilians and disillusioned soldiers. Internationally, the situation has sparked concern and cautious optimism. Western governments, including the European Union and the United States, have been monitoring Belarus closely since the beginning of the crisis. A sudden collapse of Lukashenko's regime could have far-reaching consequences for regional stability. If the generals succeed in forcing him out, Belarus could face a power vacuum, one that might trigger either a democratic transition or a violent struggle for control. NATO has reportedly increased surveillance along its eastern border, while Polish and Lithuanian forces remain on alert, wary of potential spillover. At the same time, Moscow's next move is unpredictable. Putin has invested heavily in keeping Lukashenko in power, providing loans, energy subsidies, and security guarantees. Losing Belarus would be a geopolitical nightmare for Russia, effectively cutting off a key ally and exposing its western flank. Inside Belarus, the political tension is reaching a boiling point. Protests have once again started to appear in several cities, including Brest, Rodna, and even the outskirts of Minsk. Though small at first, these gatherings are growing rapidly as rumors spread about the general's rebellion. State television continues to deny any reports of military dissent, but leaked videos show soldiers removing portraits of Lukashenko from their offices. In one particularly symbolic moment, footage emerged of a group of officers standing in silence as they lowered the national flag and saluted, not to Lukashenko but to the people of Belarus. The regime quickly tried to suppress these images, but they spread like wildfire online, fueling speculation that the end of the Lukashenko era may finally be near. As uncertainty deepens, the economy is also taking a hit. The Belarusian ruble has fallen sharply against the dollar, and panic buying has begun in some cities. Citizens fear that the crisis could escalate into civil conflict or even foreign intervention. Banks are limiting withdrawals, and long queues have formed at gas stations and grocery stores. The government's attempt to maintain normalcy is failing, as even state employees whisper about defections within the army. It is clear that Lukashenko's grip on power is weakening. The once unshakable father of the nation now appears isolated, defiant, and desperate. According to analysts, Lukashenko's downfall, if it comes, will not be sudden but gradual, a slow unraveling of loyalty and authority. Already some provincial governors and police commanders have reportedly refused to attend meetings with him. His speeches, once defiant and commanding, now sound defensive and rambling. In a televised address last week, he accused foreign agents and traitors within the system of trying to destabilize Belarus. But his words only reinforced the perception that his regime is cracking from within. Observers note that when a dictator begins accusing his own generals of betrayal, it is often a sign that the end is near. Behind the scenes, Moscow faces a difficult choice. Putin must decide whether to intervene militarily to save his ally or to quietly facilitate a transition that preserves Russian influence. Some reports claim that the Kremlin is already in contact with certain Belarusian generals, exploring the possibility of a controlled replacement. A coup that would remove Lukashenko but install another pro-Russian figure in his place. Such a move could prevent Belarus from sliding into Western orbit while satisfying the general's demands for change. However, any overt Russian interference could backfire, sparking nationalist resistance within Belarus and pushing the country further toward the West. Meanwhile, Lukashenko's opponents abroad are intensifying their efforts. Exiled media outlets are broadcasting live updates, opposition telegram channels are coordinating demonstrations, and Western diplomats are quietly preparing for the possibility of a post-Lukashenko government. For many Belarusians, this moment feels like déjà vu, a second chance after the crushed revolution of 2020. But they know the risks are high. If the coup fails, Lukashenko will unleash a brutal crackdown. Thousands could be imprisoned or worse. Yet the growing number of defections within the military suggests that even his feared KGB and Oman forces might not be willing to carry out mass repression anymore. As night falls over Minsk, uncertainty grips the nation. Rumors circulate that Lukashenko has fled the capital. Others claim he is preparing a televised address to declare martial law. In the streets, soldiers stand guard at government buildings, their loyalty uncertain. The air feels heavy, electric, charged with the sense that history is being written in real time. The people of Belarus, long silenced by fear, are beginning to whisper again, words of freedom, of hope, of a new beginning. Analysts describe the current situation as a perfect storm. The regime's pillars, military loyalty, Russian backing, and domestic fear are all weakening simultaneously. Without one of these supports, Lukashenko's system could collapse entirely. He has survived strikes, protests, international sanctions, and even assassination rumors. But betrayal from within is something no autocrat can withstand for long. The image of the strong man surrounded by generals demanding his resignation encapsulates the tragedy of authoritarian rule when fear is the glue that holds power together. The moment that fear evaporates, everything falls apart. In the coming days, the world will watch Belarus closely. Will Lukashenko step down peacefully, or will he fight to the bitter end? Will the generals form a transitional council, or will chaos erupt in the power vacuum? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is clear: Belarus will never be the same again. The old order is crumbling, and a new chapter, whether born of hope or conflict, is about to begin. For now, Lukashenko remains defiant, perhaps delusional, insisting that he will never surrender. But history has a way of catching up even with the most stubborn dictators. His isolation grows by the hour. His speeches are met not with applause but with silence. His generals no longer salute him with pride but with calculation. In their eyes, he is no longer the leader of Belarus. He is the obstacle to its survival. And so, the man who once ruled every corner of his country through fear now finds himself cornered, surrounded by his own generals, abandoned by his people, and distrusted even by his allies. Alexander Lukashenko faces the endgame of his long and brutal reign. Whether he resigns, flees, or is forced out, one thing is certain: the shadow of his rule is fading, and the dawn of a new Belarus is on the horizon.